Warning! This show contains strong opinions, uncomfortable facts, and discussions that challenge official narratives and media framing. If you prefer your news pre-approved, emotionally curated, or filtered through partisan talking points, this may not be the program for you. Viewer discretion is advised.
Tonight, we're not asking whether the law was broken. We're asking who gets to decide when the law matters. Because somehow, in modern America, the same enforcement becomes tyranny, the same investigations become heroism, and the same institutions magically transform depending on who's sitting behind the resolute desk. Justice didn't suddenly change. The narrative did. They tell you to trust the system, but only when it's aimed in one direction. They praise enforcement when it's quiet, bureaucratic, and wrapped in legacy media approval. But scream fascism the moment those same laws are applied without ideological permission. Prosecutors become saints, agents become villains, and accountability becomes a moving target that never quite lands on the people who swear it's most important. So tonight we're pulling apart the theater, the hearings, the headlines, the moral outrage that only activates on command, and asking the question no one on cable news wants answered. Is this justice or is it narrative enforcement? Because if the law only works one way, then it isn't law anymore. It's leverage. Welcome to Data and Dissonance. All right, let's bring in the crew, because this isn't a one-voice conversation. This is where friction sharpens the truth. First up, Brian, bringing that MAGA Fire energy every single night. If there's hypocrisy in the room, Brian's already kicked the door in, flipped the table, and asked why no one's being honest about it. Next, Rachel, the independent voice, the adult in the room, cutting through spin from both sides. She's here to slow it down, check the facts, and ask the questions everyone else avoids because they don't fit a talking point. Then there's Daniel, our resident conspiracy board, connecting dots nobody wants connected. If something feels coordinated, pre-scripted, or just a little too convenient, Daniel's already 10 steps ahead asking who benefits. And rounding it out tonight, Skylar, challenging this panel from the left, skeptical of power no matter who holds it, and never shy about pushing back when she thinks lines are being crossed. Different views, different instincts, same mission, cut through the noise and get to what's actually happening. Let's get started. So let's start right here, because this is where the story actually breaks. Not in the headlines, not in the talking points, but in the contradiction nobody wants to sit with. This week we watched a familiar ritual play out. Congressional hearings, serious faces, carefully chosen language, and the media telling us once again that this is all about protecting democracy and defending the rule of law. We're told to trust the process, trust the institutions, trust the people in charge, even as those same institutions keep changing their standards depending on who they're pointed at. At the same time, we're watching immigration enforcement ramp up under Trump's second term, using the exact same laws, the exact same authorities, and often the exact same agencies that were celebrated just a few years ago. Back then it was enforcement, now it's authoritarianism. Back then it was necessary, now it's dangerous. And the only variable that changed wasn't the statute, the policy, or the power, it was the person holding office. So this segment isn't about defending one man or attacking another. It's about something bigger and more uncomfortable. Whether justice in this country has become conditional, whether enforcement is now moral or immoral based solely on who signs the paperwork, and whether the rule of law still means anything if it only applies in one direction. Because when accountability becomes selective, people stop believing outcomes, even legitimate ones. And once that trust is gone, you don't have a justice system anymore. You have a performance. Brian, I want to start with you. We've got prosecutors testifying like guardians of democracy, enforcement agencies suddenly labeled villains, and the media insisting this is all totally normal and definitely not political. Same laws, same powers, totally different outrage. When you step back and look at this, does this feel like justice being applied, or like the system choosing sides?
No, this doesn't feel like justice. It feels like selective enforcement with a PR team. Because every time they say trust the system, I look around and see cable news anchors acting like courtroom groupies. That's not law, that's marketing. And the whiplash is wild. Same laws, same ICE, same enforcement. But under Obama, it was necessary policy, and under Trump, it's apparently the purge. Did the law change? No. Did the agents change? No. The only thing that changed was the letter next to the president's name, and suddenly everyone's clutching pearls like it's their job. Which, to be fair, it literally is. And Jack Smith testifying like he's protecting democracy is hilarious. Bro, you're not Batman. You're a lawyer with a badge and a microphone. If justice was really blind, it wouldn't need this many talking points. So yeah, this isn't the system being fair. This is the system picking favorites and hoping nobody notices the pattern, which would work better if they didn't do it every election cycle.
Yeah, and that's the part people can't unsee once they see it. The timing always seems convenient. Investigations pop up like Spirit Halloween stores right before elections, and somehow they're always fully stocked. Rachel, let me come to you on this, because Brian's basically saying the system didn't lose credibility overnight. It burned it down slowly with double standards. From your independent lens, is the bigger damage here the politics, or the fact that people don't trust the outcome anymore, even when something might be legitimate?
I think the real damage isn't even the politics, it's the trust collapse. Because once people start believing outcomes are pre-decided, it doesn't matter if a case is legitimate or not. The public tunes it out. And that's dangerous, because skepticism turns into cynicism really fast. What makes this worse is the inconsistency. You can't spend years telling people the system is flawed, biased, racist, and broken, and then suddenly demand total faith in it when it's politically convenient. That's like trash-talking your own car for a decade and then acting offended when nobody wants to ride in it. And look, I don't think questioning prosecutors or enforcement automatically means you're anti-law or pro-chaos. Accountability should apply to everyone, including the people claiming to be the guardians of accountability. If your case is strong, it should survive scrutiny without a media shield and a moral lecture attached. So yeah, when justice starts sounding like a press release, people stop listening, not because they're radicalized, but because they've been trained not to trust the messenger.
That's a great point. When everything comes with a moral lecture, it stops sounding like law and starts sounding like marketing, and marketing always has a target audience. Daniel, let me bring you in here because Rachel's talking about trust erosion, but you're always looking at timing, coordination, and incentives. When you see hearings, leaks, and media narratives all lining up like this, do you think that's just coincidence or something more organized?
Look, I'm not saying there's a secret room with cloaks and candles, but I am saying it's funny how this stuff always lines up like a Netflix release schedule. Hearings drop, leaks appear, headlines lock in, and suddenly, everyone's reading from the same script. If this were random, it'd be the most organized randomness in human history. And every time we're told there's no coordination, I think, wow, that's amazing. Because the DOJ, the media, and political operatives all somehow reach the same conclusion at the same time, using the same words, with the same moral framing. That's either a miracle or a group chat. What really tips it off for me is the timing. None of this ever happens quietly. It never happens in August. It never happens after an election. It's always right when public attention matters most. That doesn't mean the cases are fake, but it does mean the rollout is strategic. Justice might be blind, but whoever's in charge of the release schedule definitely isn't. So yeah, coincidence is possible, but when coincidences start stacking like this, eventually you stop calling it coincidence and start calling it a pattern. And once people see the pattern, you can't unsee it.
Yeah, the rollout might be the most honest phrase of the night so far. When justice needs a launch strategy, something's off. Skylar, I want to bring you in here, because from the left, the argument is usually about executive overreach and civil liberties. But how do you square that concern with the fact that the same enforcement tools and prosecutorial power existed under Obama, and there wasn't this level of alarm? Where does that line actually get crossed?
I think the concern from the left isn't just about who's enforcing the law. It's about how much power we're normalizing and how easily it can be abused once everyone decides it's justified. And yes, those tools existed under Obama, but a lot of people on the left would argue they were wrong then too. They just didn't have the megaphone they have now. Where it gets uncomfortable is this. When you build a system that relies on trust instead of restraint, eventually that trust runs out. And once people believe enforcement is being driven by politics, even if that belief isn't always accurate, the damage is already done. That's how civil liberties get eroded quietly, not loudly. I also think it's fair to say that Trump's rhetoric amplifies those fears. Whether you agree with him or not, his style makes people worry about how power is used, not just that it exists. That doesn't mean the law shouldn't be enforced. It means transparency and limits matter more than ever. So, yeah, the inconsistency is real, but but the solution isn't pretending power isn't dangerous. It's making sure it's checked no matter who's in office, because eventually it's going to be used by someone you don't trust.
And that's really the tension at the center of all this. Brian's pointing out the double standard, Rachel's warning about trust collapsing, Daniel's saying the timing never seems accidental, and Skylar's reminding us that unchecked power is dangerous no matter who's holding it. Different angles, but they all land in the same uncomfortable place. Because once enforcement feels political, justice stops feeling legitimate. And once legitimacy is gone, people don't argue the facts anymore. They argue the intent. That's when every investigation becomes suspect, every action feels loaded, and the system starts eating its own credibility. And that's the bigger issue here, not Trump, not one prosecutor, not one agency, but whether Americans can still believe the rules apply evenly, or whether we're just watching power shift hands while the standards stay conveniently flexible.
Quick break. If you want to support the show and say exactly where you stand, head over to the Data and Dissonance merch store. The I Support ICE shirt is live right now, because law enforcement doesn't stop being legitimate just because the media changes the headline. Same laws, same job, different outrage. And we also dropped new millennial and Gen Z designs this morning. Cleaner looks, sharper messaging, because free speech shouldn't be limited to one age group or one aesthetic. Whether you want bold or low-key, we've got you covered. Links in the description. Grab the merch, keep the lights on, and help us keep telling the truth, even when it makes people uncomfortable. All right, back to it.
What tonight really exposed isn't a single investigation or a single enforcement action. It's how fragile trust becomes when standards start shifting depending on who's in power. Because once people believe the rules are flexible, that justice is situational, everything downstream breaks. You don't get healthy skepticism anymore. You get suspicion. You don't get debate. You get disbelief. And that's not because Americans suddenly became extreme or unreasonable. It's because they've been watching the goalposts move in real time for years. The dangerous part isn't disagreement. Disagreement is normal. The dangerous part is when accountability turns performative and enforcement turns symbolic. When hearings feel staged, when leaks feel timed, when outrage feels pre-written. At that point, even legitimate cases struggle to stand on their own because credibility has been spent recklessly. And credibility, once gone, doesn't come back with another press conference or another carefully worded headline. And maybe that's the quiet truth no one wants to admit. This isn't about protecting democracy. It's about protecting narratives, about deciding which laws are virtuous, which power is acceptable, and which enforcement is considered moral-based not on consistency but on convenience. That's not how a republic holds together. A system survives on equal application, not equal messaging. So the question going forward isn't whether you like Trump or hate Trump, support ICE or oppose it, trust prosecutors or doubt them. The real question is simpler. Do you want rules that apply evenly or outcomes that feel emotionally satisfying? Because you can't have both forever. Eventually, one replaces the other. That's why we keep doing this show. Not to tell you what to think, but to slow the noise down long enough to actually think, to question the framing, to look at patterns instead of headlines, and to remind you that skepticism isn't extremism. It's citizenship. We'll see you next time. And remember, speak truth, stir thought.
Tonight's episode is brought to you by Black Echo Rising, the latest installment in the Caleb Rourke thriller series. And yes, it's been out since Christmas. And if you haven't grabbed it yet, you're missing the most intense chapter so far. Black Echo Rising drops Rourke into a world of covert power, buried alliances, and consequences that don't stay hidden forever. The kind of story that asks what really happens when truth collides with institutions that would rather keep it quiet. No preachy politics, no shortcuts, just a fast, sharp thriller that understands how power actually works. If you like your fiction grounded, tense, and a little too close to reality, you'll want this one. It's available right now on Amazon in ebook and paperback. Links in the description, read it, support the show, and we'll see you next time.